Hi guys, you're listening to Ebird Online, and I'm here with the second part for my Meet the Couples for 90 Day Fiance, Season 7, Episode 1. So it's a continuation of yesterday's video, and I'm just going to go through the pros and cons of each relationship, and I'm going to perform a full risk assessment. Before we get going, thank you guys for subscribing. I've hit 12,500 and I'm careering towards 13,000. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. You'll make Ebird a very happy Ebird. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Ebird99. And so the first couple I'm going to speak about today are Emily and Sasha. Emily is 29 and she's from Portland, Oregon, and Sasha is 32 and he's a personal trainer from Russia. So Emily currently lives in Russia, and so when she graduated from university, she decided to go and get a teaching job, I'm assuming TEFL, and to date, Emily has been living in Russia for 3 years. So Emily informs us that she loved to dress up and rave, and she was a real wild child, and we're treated to lovely pictures of her out in clubs, out at raves. But then she decided to move to Russia. She thought Russia was going to be some sort of wonderland. She was imagining Alexandra Palace and Red Square. She got Siberia and Chernobyl. Emily didn't like where she'd moved to at all. Strangely, it didn't occur to Emily to move, but hey ho. And Emily informs us all she did was go to work, teach her students, and come home. She was very lonely. She knew nobody. So what do people usually do when they're in a new country and they don't know anybody? Did you join an expat group, Emily? Did you offer to do an English to Russian language swap so you could maybe meet some Russian people? Did you decide to move to a place where there were more Americans or English speakers? No, none of that. Emily had a much better plan. She joined a gym. Whilst at the gym, she met a personal trainer, Sasha. One thing led to another, and before you knew it, Emily was 39 weeks pregnant. Yep, you heard it right. Emily's 39 weeks pregnant with Sasha's baby. Sasha told Emily that she was the first American that he'd ever met, but seemingly not the first blonde, because Sasha has been married not once but twice before and has a child from each relationship. And to be quite honest guys, this shocked the F out of me, because Sasha's only 32. So he's been married and had 2 kids with 2 different women. He's engaged to Emily and she's 39 weeks pregnant, all by the age of 32. Sasha, you're a quick worker. Sasha enjoys being a personal trainer, and we see him flexing his muscles in the mirror and flexing his muscles for the camera, and I'm sure that's what attracted Emily, because when she first met him, he didn't speak English and she doesn't speak any Russian. Wait, what? She's been in Russia for 3 years and doesn't speak Russian, and as if to illustrate that point, she walks into a coffee bar and she tries to order a tea. She doesn't even know the Russian for "can I get a drink?" After 3 years, Emily, you really ought to be ashamed of yourself. Emily's managed to be a worry to her family the whole time she's been in Russia. Once they found out she was pregnant, they said, come straight home and let's make sure this baby's safe. But she told them, no, I can't leave Sasha. And of course she can't, because he'd be on to wife number 4 if she did. And she decided to stay in Russia with Sasha and have the baby. But worry not, Emily's family. She has applied for her K1 visa, and her and Sasha will be coming over to the US just as soon as the baby's born. And Emily's family are understandably very worried that Sasha will leave her for wife number 4. But to be quite honest, I think they're worrying unnecessarily. I think he'll just leave her for girlfriend number 287. Emily tells us, well, he's made mistakes in the past and he happened to marry those mistakes, but I'm not a mistake. Our relationship is perfect and we're gonna last. And Sasha tells us that he's a good guy really, and that it's a shame that his previous relationships didn't work out, but Emily's the one for him. She's the one to take him to America, that's for sure. So let's think about the risk assessment between these two. Emily, it ain't looking good. Sasha's got married not once but twice before. Sasha's left 2 women and 2 kids. Sasha's fully prepared to go and leave those children in Russia while he rocks on with a new life in America with you. Sasha obviously loves himself. He loves flexing his muscles and posing for pictures. I really don't see any positives in this relationship, unfortunately. Well, the only positives I see are the fact that they're similar ages, so I guess that's good. More than likely Sasha knows how to put on a nappy, so he can teach her that. I think looks wise they're quite a good match as well. But I'm really scratching around here. They don't even seem to have any chemistry when you see them on screen. Honestly, this couple, I 100% believe that Sasha saw his chance to get to America and he grabbed it with both hands. It's a shame, but it's just what I think. Is this a risky relationship? You bet it is. So as usual, let me know what you guys think. Do you think Emily and Sasha can make it? Or do you think Sasha's wandering eye will wander off as soon as he gets into the US? And my final couple for my risk analysis are Robert, who's 41 and from Miami, and Anny, who's 30 and she's from the Dominican Republic. So Robert and Anny are an interesting couple. They've actually only met each other for 8 hours thus far. So Robert works as a taxi driver and he tells us he works his schedule around his son, and he has a little son called Bryson who looks about 5, and he's actually a super cute looking kid, and Robert describes him as his mini-me. Robert tells us everything he does is for his son. He says during his time working as a taxi driver, he's met not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 NFL players, and for some reason he seems excited about this. Robert also lets us know that Bryson's mum is out of the picture, and so Robert's a single parent. He says Bryson's mum moved everything out of the apartment without even telling him. So I do hope that later in the season we find out exactly what happened between Robert and his ex, because I think this might give us a little bit more detail about what Robert is like as a person. But Robert's now moved on. He's moved on to Anny, who he describes as fire, and I think that's a very apt description because I've got a feeling Robert's going to get burned. He tells us they met through a mutual friend on Facebook. So not a mutual friend then. Basically, Robert, you stalked her on social media. You liked what you saw and you slid into her DMs. Let's not make it sound any less sleazy than we know it to be. He said they were talking and chatting online for a couple of months and they got on really well. And when I look at Annie's pictures, I can imagine why. So Robert decided to take the bull by its horns and he decided to go over and see Anny in the Dominican Republic. So what did Robert do? Did he book a 1-week holiday and go and stay with her? Or did he take his son over and stay in a hotel and meet up with Anny while he was there? No, Robert decided to go one better. He booked a cruise. But unfortunately, that cruise only stopped for 1 day in the Dominican Republic. He was very desperate to meet her, it seems, but not for too long. He said he spent 8 hours with her on the beach. And in that 8 hours, he was so impressed by her and so taken with her that he decided to ask her to marry him. She seemed equally impressed with him because she agreed immediately. Robert arrived back home and he applied for the K1 visa, so he hasn't actually seen Anny at all since then, and it seems like they just talk on the phone and the computer via Skype. So we cut to a scene of Robert talking to Anny via FaceTime, and I can't help but notice that the pictures of Anny look significantly at variance with the photos I witnessed on Facebook. And I think more than likely she's been using Rebecca's filters. So we listen into one of their conversations and Annie's asking Robert for an iPhone, and she's also asking him about the engagement ring. Robert's not happy to do either. Robert's saying, when you get to America, I'll take you out and buy you everything you need, but I'm not buying you an iPhone, and I'll only buy you your modestly priced ring when I can afford it. Robert, I've got a plan for Anny. I think you should get her an iPhone 5. They're only $80 in cash converters, and something tells me that Robert's probably on first name terms with the staff from his local cash converters. And then Robert tells us he's conservative with his money. Robert, we know, we can see. And Robert tells Anny that he's going to buy the cheapest ring that he can find. And then he tells us that his ring shouldn't cost more than a month's salary. Also in the same phone call, Anny says she's quite scared of Bryson and she's worried about taking care of him. And Robert tells us that when Anny gets to the US, he expects her to take care of his son whilst he goes out and earns money because Annie's not going to be able to work. I think you'll find, Robert, that childcare is actually work. And then Robert confides in us that he's worried that all Anny is about is money. What gives you that impression? She's only asked for an iPhone and a diamond ring. And he says maybe she's not going to care about him and Bryson. And he tells us if this doesn't go right, he'll be absolutely devastated because his expectations from this relationship are extremely high. So what do we think for the risk assessment? Well, on the positives, it does seem like there's sexual chemistry between the two of them. It also seems like they're age appropriate, and I think in terms of looks they're a good match. Anny seems to speak quite good English, and so I don't think thus far there have been any crossed wires. However, on the negatives, there's quite a little list. I think that Robert wants Anny to be a mum to Bryson, and Anny confides that she's scared about looking after Bryson. And given that Bryson's never met Anny, I think this is rushing things a little bit too fast. Also, Robert says that he's going to take her out and buy whatever she needs. I think what Robert thinks she needs and what Anny thinks she needs will be significantly different. Also, Robert says that he's very conservative with money, and it seems to me that Anny seems to think that when she arrives in Florida, it's going to be a land of milk and honey and plentiful cash. And I think she's going to be in for somewhat of a shock. And then, of course, they've only met for 8 hours. And what I find quite unbelievable, Robert, is that if you had money to go on a cruise and you knew you wanted to go and see Anny, why didn't you just fly direct to the Dominican Republic and spend at least 3 or 4 days with Anny so you could get to know her a little better? Anybody can be nice for 8 hours in a row, even the Ebird. But let's be real, you don't know what Anny's really like, and I don't think she knows what you're really like either. I've got a feeling that you're more interested in Anny's computer-generated physical attributes than you are in Anny as a person. So my risk assessment for this couple is that it's an extremely risky investment. And so that's everything for all of the couples we have thus far. I understand from looking at the promos that Angela and Michael are back, and Michael is finally in the US. I'm off now to write to the Nigerian High Commission to see if that Angela can be admitted to Nigeria on a permanent basis, and I'll let you know how I get on. So guys, tell me what you think. Do you think Robert is into Anny? Or do you think he's just slid into her DMs and he has no real interest in her personality or her as a person? Do you think Anny is ready for looking after Bryson and taking on much more of a housewife role rather than a party girl role? Let me know in comments what you think, and I'll be back very soon with my roundup of what happened on the rest of the episode. Guys, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Just click that red button and turn on the notifications bell so you don't miss any videos. Thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Ebird Online. Ciao for now.